Welcome to A New Generation. I'm your host, Steve Miller. And this is part one of our shows that we're doing for the month of February, commemorating Black History Month. What I thought we'd do is take a look at some of the history of Black Fort Wayne, not necessarily going back, way back into the 1800s and trying to figure out who were some of the first blacks here or anything like that, but instead looking at some of the people that have been here for a while over the last 20, 30 years and have seen some of the changes that have taken place in this city. I think that by learning about the changes that we, the new generation, can progress from that point. What we're going to do in this show and in the part two that we'll show next week is talk to some people in various fields, in particular the business segment, the educational segment, and then talk a little bit about the social, political, and economic conditions in Fort Wayne. So we hope that you will indeed stay tuned to this show and next week's too. With me for the first guest on this show is Miss Thelma Russell. Thelma is a prominent black businesswoman here in Fort Wayne. She has been for a number of years. Thelma, I want to thank you for being on the show. Thelma is indeed the owner and executive director of the Gingerbread House, which is a daycare center here in Fort Wayne. And Thelma, we want to talk a little bit about the Gingerbread House and its aspect as being a successful business. But first, let's hear a little bit about you and how you came about wanting to be a businesswoman.
Well, I grew up in Fort Wayne here, and I went to Harmer and to Central and St. Francis. But as far as wanting to be a businesswoman when I was in school, that was the farthest thing from my mind. The idea of the Gingerbread House came to me when I was employed at James Smart School. The absenteeism for older boys and girls there was pretty high. And it was high because the boys and girls were out babysitting with their younger brothers and sisters. It's always been a fact that black people have to work, and there was no one else to take care of the children. And this is where I conceived the idea of a daycare center for the boys and girls in the area of Pontiac Street.
Okay. Now, when did you start this?
February will be 12 years, okay. So it's 1970.
1970. What was the early business-like situation in Fort Wayne prior to starting the Gingerbread House? What kind of businesses existed?
As I can remember growing up, most of the business in Fort Wayne at that time was mostly tavern owners. Of course, we've always had a funeral home here and restaurants. Okay. But I don't think in the 40s, 50s, there was very many black businesses in Fort Wayne.
Okay. Now, being number one, black, and number two, a woman in the 70s, the beginning of the 70s, did that cause any problems, or did that result in any problems from people when you were trying to get started?
Not really. I think when any person goes into business, first you have to find the need for the product or service that you want to offer. And at that time, I say in 71, there was a great need because the economy was much better than it is now. And there was plenty of work for people, and therefore there was a great need. So being a woman at that time had no influence whatsoever on the business that I particularly went into.
Okay. How was the Gingerbread House received?
Oh, very well. It's our program at the Gingerbread House is on an educational level for preschoolers. Our curriculum and activities and our field trips and so forth are geared for each age level. Therefore, the children are in an educational environment during the day. So therefore, it has, we've been very successful with our program. Okay. The community has received it well up until the last few years. Right. And I think that's due to the economy, not that the Gingerbread House per se is not received well, but the economy has caused so many people to be out of work, and therefore there's no need for the type of service right now that I'm offering. Not as much as it was in the 70s.
Right. I think maybe part of that is there's been an upspring of other daycare centers too, seems like.
Yes, I think when I opened in Fort Wayne, there was only about 4 in the city.
Okay.
And now there's just about 1 on every other corner.
Right. Probably the first black owned,
Yes,
though, right?
yes, the first black owned.
Okay. Did the white community object, or was there any, did you get any noise from anybody?
If there was any objection, I didn't hear it. Like I
Okay.
say, there was a great need, and I think that was the secret of my success.
Okay. As time went on, as the Gingerbread House grew during the 70s, what kind of progress did you see in Fort Wayne in general? What kind of progress was going on at that time?
Well, I think now you see more and more women and men going into businesses. In fact, we have along Pontiac Street now an organization which is called PRO. It's Pontiac Renaissance Organization. It's simply the merchants and residents united for the rebirth of Pontiac Street. We have a total of 42 businesses along Pontiac Street, and working with CD&P, Community Development and Planning, from City Hall, and the association, Neighborhood Association, we're beginning to develop plans that will give Pontiac a new look,
Okay.
and which we hope will draw in more businesses along that area.
Okay. Is there any plans or any hope to maybe spread that, not just on Pontiac Street? In other words, are other black businesses hoping to do the same kind of thing? Or will it be like a combination of all black businesses?
Well, I don't know about other black businesses, but I know Broadway has just went through this same revitalization.
Okay.
And since Pontiac Street has a variety of merchants already, we're hoping to draw in many more, that Pontiac could be a very viable and busy business district as it once was in the 70s. During that time, you had just about any type of business along Pontiac Street that you needed.
Right.
There was a hardware store and a library, and of course the school was there. Filling stations, service stations, shoe shops, just about anything that you would need. Drugstores along Pontiac Street. Next to my building there was a large Rogers Market,
Right.
which is very much needed now. And I'm hoping that with the rebirth of Pontiac Street, that we can draw these same kinds of businesses back to that district, especially for the senior citizens.
Can you put your finger on any reason why there was a demise? Why things went under? I say went under, but, you know, why
Well,
there
I
is a
think-
need for a rebirth.
Yes, I think the number one reason that Pontiac declined was the influx of suburbia. People began to, they were working, they're drawing good salaries, and they began to move out to the suburbs of town. And whenever you begin to see the influx of people moving out, then you see homes and begin to decay. If there's no residents there, then businesses go down.
Right.
And I think that was the main reason for Pontiac Street going down.
Okay. Black support for black businesses. A lot of times it's said that blacks do not support their own businesses. What's your opinion?
Well, I think that's true to some standpoint. I think there could be more support in any type of businesses among the black area. But I can't say that for my business in particular, because I am what is now mostly called the inner city.
Okay.
Although we serve mostly people from all segments of Fort Wayne, most of the children that go to my business are in the minority. So I cannot say that blacks don't support me, because they do.
They do. Good. Good. If you had to tell someone the kind of business to get into, with the hard economic times as it is, I know it's difficult to start a small business, but if a person is indeed thinking about that, what kind of things does Fort Wayne need? on a minority scale, or even on a large scale? What kind of things are needed?
Well, I'll have to deal with Pontiac Street,
Okay.
simply because I'm working with that group, and I'm hoping that it will catch on and become a viable street.
Right.
I know along Pontiac Street we need a large grocery store. A medical center is very much needed there. Also, a drugstore. Those type of things are really needed. We have a new food chain on Pontiac Street, but I think the services that are really needed would be a medical center, hoping that some of the doctors maybe will go together and put one there, a grocery store, and even a bank.
Okay.
There's no bank in that area, and I would like to see one of the banks of the city move to that area to keep the senior citizens from catching the buses and go downtown to cash their checks and so forth.
Right. Has there been any talk along that line?
Well, there's one bank in town that has done a survey, but
Okay.
that's as far as I know it is.
That's a step.
Yeah.
That's a step. Okay. In the future, what can we hope for the black businesses here in Fort Wayne? Do we, well, besides the things that we need, the services and things, what kind of things can blacks do to ensure that businesses survive?
Anytime you go into business, it's a chance. So I don't think you can say that blacks or whites or anyone could ensure that their business would survive. It's a chance you take when you go into business. But I'm hoping that blacks will, if they go into business, will first get the expertise they need. And make sure this is really the business that is a need for. It's no need of opening up a business if there's not the need for it.
Right.
Also, I'm hoping that blacks will venture out into franchises and go into that type of businesses.
Good. Yeah, well, indeed, if some of these things happen, then we can expect the future to be bright. Okay. Thelma, I want to thank you for coming on and giving us some insight to the history of Black Fort Wayne, the business world, and into the Gingerbread House, too. I think people out there understand how hard it has been for you to be successful. It's not easy being a business person, especially in these times, and you indeed have been successful. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. We'll be back right after this.